Hello everyone, and welcome back to Totally Random Thoughts. My name is Bree.
I am Tag.
And together we are
Bree and Tag.
Welcome back to the podcast that is just full of totally random shit. How was your week?
My week is good. I want to start with thanks for coming back and watching this week. Be sure to check us out on all of your podcast favorite sites, or your favorite podcast sites. Everything in Audible, everything on Spotify. And don't forget, we're also on TV, on Plymouth Rock TV, which is our host station, as well as Amazon Fire and Apple TV and Distro TV and Roku and Local Now. So you can find us everywhere. Sunday nights at 7, the episodes hit TV. Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m., they hit your podcast sites. And then always on demand on Plymouth Rock TV's app. So there you go. Find us. And my week was okay. It was up and down. Saturday was my daughter's birthday, and she's now 10. I don't have a 9-year-old anymore. I have a 10-year-old.
Preteen,
I
here
know.
we come.
Everything's changing. Like we have to now kick my son out of rooms because she needs to get changed. And at 10, she's like, "Dad, get him out." So, at 8 to 9, she was like changing in the living room. I'm like, "Dude, go get out of the living room."
Yeah.
Now she's the one who's like, "Ah." And then Sunday we had to put my cat down. So that was a up and down kind of weekend. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was just about 19.
Long
it was
life,
quick.
though.
Yes, yeah. We keep all our kids. My last dog, Java the Wonder Beagle, went to 19 and a half.
I loved that dog.
And our last cat, Sammy, went to just over 18, and now Munchkin went to just before 19.
That's amazing,
so,
honestly.
And Laura had a cat right before I started seeing her that went to 20.
Wow.
So we keep our kids. Hopefully, we keep our regular kids for a while, too.
Yeah. Jesus.
You're probably wondering who this is.
Yeah, everyone say hello to Melissa.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi.
How are you?
Would you like to formally introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Melissa Pinnetti. I'm a friend of these two and a social worker and a certified personal trainer and a mom and a wife and a dog mom.
Almost a nutritionist, right?
And almost a certified nutrition coach.
You got to make a distinction in that.
Okay.
So I am a nutrition specialist. She will be a nutrition coach. We are the same level.
Okay.
Nutritionists are degrees.
Gotcha.
We are certifications. Then there's a dietitian, which is even more clinical.
Yes, I used to work under dietitians.
Dietitians can write you a diet plan.
Mm-hmm.
No one else technically can.
Mm-hmm.
We can all have the same conversation with you, but only a dietitian can go, here's what you're eating every single day, at what time, and what food.
Right.
The rest of us can have the same conversation, but we can hand you suggestions, but we can't hand you a diet plan. So there is a distinction.
I learned a lot about diet plans.
Yeah.
Working under the dietitians.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. People don't realize if the renal diet plans.
Yeah.
Like certain things you can and cannot have if you're in any type of renal
Right.
failure. And most people are like, what is renal failure? It's just,
Yeah.
there's a whole world.
And I want to get into some stuff later because with she's changed her diet over the last year.
Oh, yeah.
And it has gotten rid of a lot of things.
Yes.
That, some things that you struggle with in some ways. So definitely some conversation for later in the show.
Yeah, it's a really cool transformation.
Okay, so we kind of have two things that we can gain knowledge from with you. So first, I guess let's talk about what you kind of do for your regular full-time job on a daily basis, which is the social work, right?
Yes, I'm a forensic psychiatric social worker. And
Forensic. I didn't know it was forensic.
yeah.
That's
So detail for everybody what the difference is between a forensic social worker
Sure.
Yeah, because
and
I've never
a
heard of a
regular
specifically
social worker.
forensic social worker.
So I had training early on in the prison system and in the court system, and started working with folks who were involved in the probate and family court in high conflict divorce situations. So forensic really is the law. Forensic psychology is psychology of the law. Mm-hmm. And so folks involved with the legal system who are in need of some sort of parental mediation or post-divorce conflict resolution fall in the forensic psychology category. So I have a whole bunch of training, and I've been doing that for the greater part of 20 years, working as a parent coordinator, which is a kind of stipulated appointment through a probate court litigation situation. And formally did some guardian ad litem work, which was essentially child custody evaluations. I've since gotten away from those and done more of the traditional therapy hour work and mediation hours. And the other part of my practice is strictly mental health, which is a specialty in treating bipolar and psychotic disorders and substance use disorders. Sometimes the forensic and the bipolar and psychotic disorders and substance use disorders tracks overlap in my practice, and that's more or less what I do on a day-to-day basis.
So you deal with some pretty heavy, I don't want to use the word material, that's not the right word, but pretty heavy circumstances and discussions on a regular basis. But
for sure.
What do you think is one of the hardest parts of your job on the day-to-day?
So there's a couple ways I could answer this. I mean, there's the systemic difficulties. There's the societal difficulties, and then there's like the day-to-day working with other people. It has never gotten easier to sit with parents who have a child who they've had all of the most wonderful and typical expectations for, learn that their child has a psychotic disorder or bipolar disorder, which is going to change the course of their life, probably forever in some major way. That will never, I don't think that will ever get easier. 20 years, it's still heart-wrenching, and I'd be lying if I said that I haven't sat with folks who bring tears to my eyes, parents in particular. And I think being a mom now, and the mom particularly of a 17-year-old who's getting ready to head off into her own next phase of life, when these things typically come to light, has really made it more difficult. So,
well, because they say that too, a lot of mental disorders don't actually usually show themselves fully until you're like early 20s for a lot of people, is what I've heard.
Yeah. So,
and of course, that's some of your most formative years for entering into adulthood and figuring out what you're doing with your life and setting yourself up for your life.
Right.
So it can make that really, like, a really treacherous hill to climb.
It's very typical with bipolar and psychotic disorders. That first break which is what you call the first time you see a late teen, early 20 something with symptoms of either bipolar or psychotic disorder come forth. It's typically because it's I don't want to say the first time, but it's kind of generally the first time where kids face major life stress. They're transitioning from the family home into an environment that's completely unknown. It's certainly a lot more pressure because they have to take care of themselves and manage
all those adult responsibilities plus other responsibilities.
I would imagine too, and this is something we spoke about a couple episodes ago, given the millennials coming into Gen Z, where everybody got a trophy.
Yeah.
Life hit a lot of people pretty hard in the face once the trophy wasn't for free anymore.
So that's an interesting concept. Do you, from your perspective with what you deal with on a regular basis, do you think that there's any kind of validity to that, and you're seeing almost like a trend with this upcoming generation?
Is there a generational crack now with the newer generation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that in general there's a difference in grit and resilience. I think that certainly Gen Zers, I think, maybe I'm biased, but I think we're some of the grittiest. I think, and I think that the participation trophy generations are heading off into college where, professors have 200 students in front of them, and everybody has expectations and high expectations for the students in front of them, and they're not just getting A's and a pat on the back and you did a good job, or they're getting out into the work world and a boss is asking them to do something and it's not negotiable. It's, you're a rookie, you're a newbie, this is what you need to do. And I think I think that's a difficult concept for a lot of the younger generations.
Yeah.
Well, I think just because I'm a millennial, so I'm like a mid to younger millennial.
Yeah.
And my sister is a Gen Z, but she's a complete anomaly. I can't count her. She's like an 80-year-old woman in a 23-year-old body. Like literally, this girl like has her little garden and just draws and paints and reads books and like has, her cup of tea with her latest novel and wants to like live in a cottage. And I'm like, go for it.
Yeah.
Love that.
It's great.
But I think one thing I've noticed, and I will admit that the certain era of my generation and probably the generation underneath me has some of that problem, but I've thought about it a lot, and I don't know if maybe you've kind of seen some of this same circumstance where I think because like there's a whole economic and socioeconomic and systemic issue where the different ways that the generations were raised and different opportunities and sources of information that everybody had at their fingertips versus the generation before them. And like my generation and the one underneath me, especially the one underneath me, it was just go to college, go to college, go to college, go to college. You have to go to college. And these literal kids just automatically what was expected of them was to get the pats on the back during their soccer games throughout their developmental years. And then all of a sudden, as soon as you turn 18, decide what you want to do with your life, go get into $150,000 worth of debt, and then enter the workforce and have no freaking clue.
Yeah.
And a lot of my generation, like the older millennials, are now like, what was college for? Like, that's a scam.
Well, it is. It sort of is.
But I feel like there's this whole... These kids too almost are kind of like led into this, like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm sure I'll get it because this is what everybody's patting me on the back and telling me you're great and whatever. And like, but this is what I've got to do. And then they're not given any resources on how to navigate it at all.
Right.
And I think that's a big part of the problem. And it's a like worldwide thing, not even just a nationwide. Sure. So I think that's maybe part of the issue with the grit factor.
Yeah.
And I think because a lot of these younger generations, especially Gen Z, they're like I think we mentioned this in one of our last episodes. They're one of they're I think the first generation where the majority of them have had like some form of internet and technology available to them their whole lives. And you must see the effects that it has on them mentally.
Yes.
And I think this is the first generation that we're really going to see how much it affects people mentally. And I think it's affecting people's work ethic too, because, I've grown up my whole life just having all the information at my fingertips and I get things like this.
Right.
I can get info and get what I want like this. So they expect the same when it comes to climbing up in their career field or climbing up to the highest salary in their career field. And then they enter that career field and everyone that's older than them and above them in management or skill levels, like, no, that's not how that works. You're starting at $20 an hour as an associate.
I'm also seeing, and this is anecdotal, this is just based on what I see in my practice day in and day out, is everyone has focus and attention issues.
Yeah.
And everybody has a diagnosis of ADD or ADHD. And I'm not very popular with some of the psychiatrists in particular that I work with because I push back and I say, I think we need to start looking at this as a function of these kids grew up on social media with a phone and with some device in front of them distracting them with these very short reels of things.
Yes,
so it's
like the 10-second videos on Vine and
exactly. And so when we're expecting them then to sit down and write a 10-page paper or read an entire book or have a conversation that lasts an hour like we're doing here, it's very, very difficult.
Right.
And so they're feeling distressed and they're going to doctors and they're saying, I can't focus and I can't attend and I can't pay attention. And then, we're seeing massive influx of prescriptions for Adderall and the like. And I think we have a different problem on our hands.
Yeah, definitely. Like my daughter's ADHD, right? Mm-hmm. We had her diagnosed. She's diagnosed ADHD. We not once ever looked at medicine.
Yeah.
I said from day one she's not taking anything, and we've just managed it. We've learned how to manage it.
Yeah.
Well,
We've
there's so
learned
many
her
different
triggers,
coping mechanisms too.
Right, but you know what we're finding is that more than distract, a lot of ADHD kids can't stay in one spot.
Right.
They can't have the hour-long conversation. My daughter can, as long as it's something she's interested in. She loves her art and she loves her clay. She will spend 3 hours building a clay dinosaur.
Right.
Or a clay dragon. She's reading a book series right now. She will read those books cover to cover. And then she will take clay and build every character in that book. Or take pens or marker and colored pencils and draw every character in that book. And she'll spend all afternoon doing it. But if in the middle of it, I try to take her to do something else, that's where the problem is.
Overload.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. She gets hyper-focused on what she's doing.
That's a huge thing. My husband does the same exact thing.
Versus being scatterbrained, she's
right.
single-minded.
Well, and it's so interesting now, right? Because we had it's this interesting complete flip in society, I think, where back in like the 80s and early 90s, it was almost taboo and so rare to be diagnosed with ADHD.
Right.
Like my husband was luckily he had his mom, my mother-in-law, who was a special education teacher her entire life. So she was kind of able to see the signs early enough and was a little bit more aware and understanding of these types of things. So she got him testing when he was I think like 4 or 5 years old, very young. And he was confirmed diagnosed. But back then, teachers and whoever, they were just like, oh, yeah, no, he's just talkative and he's just a nuisance student because he can't pay attention. And it wasn't, and they didn't understand. But now all of a sudden, everyone has ADHD. And it's like, it's being over-diagnosed and over-prescribed, and people are self-diagnosing themselves with it. And it's like, no, did you actually go have that 4-hour-long neuropsych eval? Because my husband's done it about 3 times in his life. It's an actual like thing you have to go do to actually get clinically diagnosed.
I have kids that come to me and they say my ADHD as if it's like theirs. Like it's like a part of them, as opposed to like it is a way of being. Like I have 2 of the most functional, wonderful, successful men in my life undoubtedly have ADD, but it was never formally diagnosed. It was just something that they learned how to deal with and how to cope with. And what I try to tell some of my younger people who, I'm fairly convinced a lot of it is just a poor training of the mind to focus and to attend to things that are not particularly interesting, like your reels on social media. I try to tell them, listen, the problem here is that you're in school. And when you're in school, you have no choice. Like it's so prescribed and it's so specific what you need to do and it's not conducive to somebody who has trouble focusing. But once you get out into the world, it doesn't really matter that much because there's a bunch of jobs out there and ways that you can fit in and navigate and manage, where ADD doesn't.
ADD can actually help you.
It can help you
in certain jobs. Yeah.
It's
example A over here.
It's just our academic settings are,
our education system is a whole other subject.
That's a different episode.
Well, that's I mean, I was joking. My kids are not going to fall far from the tree, so to speak, because I'm the ADD OCD kid, but I have learned how to use my ADD for good, and I found a way to be focused, which makes sense with my daughter being hyper focused. I have become very hyper focused in controlling it, and that's how I can run my businesses the way I do and run my career for music the way I did.
You just kind of got lucky that your brain was like, I'm going to choose to hyper focus on controlling this.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus hyper focusing on something else totally
because
random.
it let me get my anxiety in order too.
Yeah.
When you're with clients, are you seeing more people who are scattered or more who are focused?
More scattered.
Really? Okay.
More scattered. Trouble settling down and doing an assignment without being distracted to something else, and not necessarily getting hyper focused on something else, but just bouncing from one thing to the other.
So where do you see the line between being a good multitasker and being ADHD scattered?
If you listen to my seminar from the other night, I actually encourage people to stop multitasking so much and get mindful.
Okay.
Just focus on one. And this is something I myself have noticed. Like I think the world is such that multitasking is like a must.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and um, I, I myself would be, looking at emails, listening to a podcast, and like, doing dishes at the same time. And I've finally about a year ago said I'm going to start practicing, and I told my husband doing one thing at a time. So I've really encouraged a lot of my clients and certainly our household to just focus on doing one thing at a time. Do it mindfully. Use all of your senses to experience the moment, no matter what it is you're doing.
How would you advise someone who is scattered, multitasking brain, to start to practice that? Because that, okay, like I know for me, like, by the way, the seminar she's speaking about is, you guys all know that I have Tag Team Fitness. Melissa and I work together. Melissa Pinnetti Fitness is part of Tag Team Fitness, and she is a personal trainer with us and our rucking instructor. So she takes people out on rucking hikes, outdoor hikes, and she's also our mental wellness instructor, our mental wellness expert. So we had a seminar this past week on "It's Not That I'm Lazy." So want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. We talked about. I started with a quote from Carl Jung about bringing the unconscious to the conscious so that you can start to like stop looking at the surface level behavior and start looking at what are the emotions, thoughts, and the biology behind why you're doing what you're doing or not doing what you'd like to be doing. And we talked about motivation and procrastination. We talked about we talked about stages of change, and we did some vignettes of a middle-aged woman who was trying to get into the gym, and we applied all of these concepts and theories that I had taught in the early part of the seminar, and then we went over strategies, cognitive behavioral strategies for setting goals, managing procrastination and motivation issues and the like. And it went pretty well. But one of the cognitive strategies that we talked about was cognitive behavioral strategies was getting mindful and to minimize multitasking.
Okay. What would be a first piece of advice for someone who says, "Okay, I want to do that, but I don't know how to do that"?
Well, this comes up a lot, and I often prescribe this as homework. So I hear a lot. This is so sad to me because I love to read.
Oh my God, reading! I have to show you my library before you leave.
I would love to. I love libraries.
Okay.
I often hear I can't read, and I notice it. I see it with my own daughter. I see it with the younger generations. They really don't read books as much anymore. Turn pages.
They can't focus long enough.
They can't focus.
Right.
And so we start to we talk about breaking it down into smaller tasks and almost mimicking the reels that that the quick hitters that they're getting on social media.
So like read one chapter.
So yeah, and we call it the Pomodoro mechanism, which is essentially allow yourself, you can start as small as you need to, but if you need to read for 5 minutes a magazine article instead of a novel or a book, read 5 minutes of a magazine article, then take a 5-minute break, and then read for 5 minutes and take a 5-minute break, and then gradually increase so that your read time is longer, but your break time is shorter, and you practice that way. And you can do that with anything. I'm just giving you.
I love that. That's a great idea. Yeah. And then I think too, it's almost like a reward system for your brain too. Right. Actually, my college was very unconventional, and literally the first class that everyone had to take in that school to start off their career there was called the psychology of play. And it was about how our brains, especially nowadays, weren't necessarily meant to and can't at this point focus for hours at a time that deeply on like one specific thing, unless of course you have ADHD and you're hyper focusing and that's a whole different thing. But they kind of taught us a similar trick where, like, when you're doing some of these big assignments for these classes that you're going to have, work for an hour and then go outside and take the dog for a 10-minute walk.
Yeah, exactly.
Or because I did everything online, so most of us were at home, or work for an hour, get up and literally do like 2 laps around the building.
Right.
Or go and do a dance break to 1 or 2 of your favorite songs.
Right.
Have a certain amount of time that you will focus and then take a break and almost like reset your brain.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
You were making me think of a fantastic book that I think everybody should read as a first line of defense. It's called Spark, and it's written by John Ratey, Ratey.
What was it called again? I'm sorry.
Spark.
I've heard of that book.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic book, and he's a local guy, a local psychologist, very famous. I think Harvard or MIT. And basically, he got interested in the concept of getting your heart rate up, so exercise, high intensity exercise, and its effects on the brain, and particularly ADHD, substance use disorders, depression, anxiety, you name it. And he started by looking at a study that was taking place in one of the suburbs of Chicago. It was a low income, really low achieving school system, and they decided they were going to bring in this morning routine where these kids would wear heart monitors. It was a very prescribed, specific plan for exercise early in the morning and then integrated throughout their school day. Similar to what you were saying, Brianna, about getting out and exercising in between as your break. And over time, what they saw was these kids started to perform better, and their scores improved and their behavior improved. And so he starts the book off talking in depth about the study, and it's intriguing, and then went on to apply it to his practice. So he talks about working.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great book.
I think too, people just get overwhelmed a lot easier. And a lot of people in today's society, including kids and including young adults, I know I have felt it myself, where there's just some days where, and it's I'm still keeping up with all my responsibilities, and it's not that I don't want to have these responsibilities, but I have anxiety too, so that's a whole different side to it, where that might be affecting me more than some people. But I find that a lot of people in the younger generations tend to feel overwhelmed, whether that is from the pressure or just too many things going on around them, or how much they feel they have to keep up with, because our country in particular, I feel like, is such a nose to the ground, go, 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 what's next? What's the next best thing?
Yep.
What are you doing next? This isn't good enough. Keep going type of society, that we don't take breaks. And it wears on people after a while.
Yep.
And I think even then it in your brain, it comes to the point where, like you said, like your daughter, even just trying to read a novel, her brain looks at a book this big and is like, no, that's too much. That's overwhelming.
It's too much.
But to break it down into smaller increments like that makes it seem much less intimidating.
For sure.
And I think we have to take that mindset and apply it to so many other things in life. But it's hard for people to do so, I think, because of this. Because it's just constant overstimulation with like notification, ping, ping, next reel. And our brains are never allowed to just chill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I use that same philosophy in the gym. When we first met, one of the things I said, and I say to every single client, I want to know your big goals, and then we're going to figure out the baby steps to get there.
Yeah.
We're going to break it into small digestible pieces so that we can celebrate a lot of wins and get our momentum up and get our emotions wrapped around, this is great, I'm doing well, without being like, oh, I'm not over there yet, that's where I want to be. No, that's
people have to remember
right
that there's stepping stones that you have to get past in order to reach your final destination.
Now, what effect did you see, and so the reason I'm going to ask this is COVID damaged a lot of kids, right? So my daughter came back from COVID.
Damaged a lot of people.
So my daughter came back from COVID because she was first grade in COVID. And we've talked about this before. I was a first grade teacher. I'm not a first grade teacher. She came back very behind the curve on reading.
Sure.
And it has taken us now to fourth grade before we've caught up. where in your practice with, say, the age group that you're dealing with, did you see a social skip, a developmental late teen, say somebody who was 15, 16, 17 at the time of COVID, lost their friends for a year?
Yep.
And what kind of developmental skip did that create to a 20-year-old now?
Yeah, I mean, I think socially, we have a generation that is a couple of years anyway behind. There was certainly a rise, not just with teens, but with adults in the use of substances. And anytime you introduce substances into the equation, it delays and it delays development socially and otherwise. Obviously, the academic effects of COVID are, well documented and being addressed. I think, what I saw a lot coming back into the office and into practice as COVID wore on was anxiety. There was just so much anxiety, whether it was about being back around people and being masked or unmasked, or
health anxiety became a huge thing.
Yeah, were they gonna hurt grandma, or were being in a large crowd of people, was it going to get them sick? It was just a lot of anxiety, and it went on for so long that you start to change the hardwiring, particularly in these young developing brains. So now you have carefree brains pre-COVID that turned into these hardwired brains toward nervousness and angst and fear and worry. And that's, there's enough of that in natural adolescence. Never mind adding this whole
There's enough of that in society in general.
Well, on top of that too, you say what? It's a month, basically. It's a month to create a new habit. And we took months and changed people's lives for months and months.
Years.
Years.
It was years.
It was March of 2020 to realistically late 22. When did they end the state of emergency officially?
I don't remember exactly.
For a lot of states. I think it was even start of 2023 for some states. Where like they said, okay, no more masks anywhere, no more, we're done. We're just treating it like the flu at this point, all good.
Well, and then these kids were watching and getting involved in this argument and all these debates around masks and vaccines and this and that and going back to work and not.
And that's all on top of other subjects that are really huge right now, and that they're being over inundated with opinions on the internet and social media, and with, I don't want to get too far down in that topic. That'll be a whole other episode that maybe you can join us on again, but like gender and again, going back to their careers and what they're going to do with their lives, and
even
and
in
what
worldviews.
successful is.
Look at every single college campus right now is under fire.
Well, it gave them a lot of time to sit on social media.
It gave so many people.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people that's one thing that you mentioned to me earlier today, that people, I think, already struggle with this, but COVID almost made it worse because a lot of people had so much time to reevaluate their entire life. People have a huge lack of like a sense of purpose in our society.
For sure.
And I know, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know if any of us could relate per se, because we're very fortunate that we've kind of led or been able to figure out ways of life for ourselves that incorporate things that we find a purpose in, or that we feel give us more of a sense of purpose, like especially you with your gym and helping people and seeing people transform their lives in a better way like that. But I think a lot of people just get stuck in the daily grind, and they just work to make money to pay their bills, and they don't have many hobbies. And I did see a lot of people actually start to gain some of those hobbies back during COVID because they couldn't do anything else. They were stuck at home, and a lot of people started working from home who didn't before. But have you what's like it's a weird dichotomy, and have you seen a shift in that, either good or bad, within a lot of people in your realm, especially the younger generations? Because I'm a little afraid for them with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general where, and again, I go back to the amount of time spent. If you look at screen time for kids, it's 5-6 hours on a screen during the course of the day, and then it's school for another part of the day and some sort of organized activity for an hour or two in the evening. It's really difficult for today's youth to develop their own sense of, I want to do this, or I enjoy doing this. And I think, what we're seeing is a dramatic rise in teens turning to substance use, teens becoming obese, teens ending up sitting in front of video games for hours on end. You don't see kids outside the way that you used to see kids outside, just doing unstructured or self-structured time. If they have time outside, it's because their parents put them in the car, had signed them up, put them in the car, and drove them there. So once all of that is over and kids have to figure that all out on their own, typically for the first time on a college campus, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
It's a struggle, and it's anxiety provoking.
Yeah.
That's why we're seeing a ton of anxiety.
A lot of people during the lockdowns turned to like online gaming.
Yeah.
And that was their social life.
Else, yeah.
They could be social from the cover of a keyboard and the anonymity of a keyboard, where nobody knew what they looked like or who they were, unless they were doing like a Twitch stream, right? And then they were gaining their followers, and their whole world became, these invisible people in the screen like me. Well, now those people are here in your face, and you don't know what to do with it.
Well, that's been a problem for years, even pre-COVID, I think, where with the rise of social media and the internet and people interacting so much on it, I've even seen it with my generation, where you have these like keyboard warriors who relentlessly bully and make life hell for so many people because they feel confident when they're just sitting in their own bedroom on their laptop.
It's easy to talk shit, but nobody's going to punch you in the face.
Right, but they would never say, but that still does damage. And is that something that you've seen with a lot of the youth as well? Even more than in-person situations, I think they're dealing with that like technological and whatever type of like
undoubtedly
gaining that lack of self-esteem, unfortunately.
Absolutely. I mean, this would be a whole nother episode.
We'll have you back if you want to come back.
Our family was greatly and devastatingly impacted by my daughter in particular, by that type of environment and it turns very quickly because of the easy access to lots and lots of people, and these people sitting behind a keyboard or on a text chain and bullying. It's on the rise. And I think, when we were kids, bullying was like the policy that everybody, had to read and sign, but it really never. I mean, if there was a bullying issue, you went out to the playground and you took care of it, and it was all done.
I wish it was still like that.
But bullying nowadays, and again, this goes to your the idea of purpose. Bullying nowadays perpetuates for days and days and weeks, and it's a multifaceted attack on whoever's being bullied.
And it can truly be never ending, because back in the day before social media, once you left school,
it was over.
Bully couldn't touch you.
Yeah.
It was over. You could still have like your safe space and your sanctuary when you went home. Now they just follow you everywhere. It's
incredibly damaging for kids.
Well, one thing I want to ask about is when you first started talking about what you do, was the family environment of, you said you work with a lot of families being divorced and how that's affecting children. So what are you seeing in that world?
So lots of divorces happened during COVID. It really highlighted.
Really?
Yeah. It highlighted, and it was really tricky to do divorce work during COVID.
Well, yeah, because you probably had to do a lot of stuff virtually.
It was virtual.
In the beginning.
And then it threw in like, then you have parents who are fighting with each other over like who's going to buy the kids school shoes in September. Never mind throwing in like one parent believes in masking and the other doesn't, or one parent believes in vaccinating, the other doesn't, and then trying to navigate that. And there's no precedent.
I didn't even think of that.
There was no precedent for either the courts or the lawyers, and certainly not the clinicians. Most of us who wouldn't issue any type of mandate on these types of things because we didn't know.
Nobody knew.
Nobody knew.
I never
what the
thought
right
of
thing.
that. Like what happened
Me either.
with 'cause my wife and I pretty much agreed on everything that we did. Like there was a couple of discussions, but we and I can also see like, when you got two parents working, they see each other an hour and a half before bed, and then they go to sleep together. All of a sudden, hi, honey, I'm home.
Yeah.
All day with you, every day.
Right.
And it just becomes,
Well,
all of the things you don't talk about because I only see you an hour a day. Now you have to talk about.
On top of the, I think, just overall uncertainty and societal inducing stress that everybody felt in the thick of COVID.
Right.
And it got to people. It really did.
Yeah.
So add that onto the anxiety of the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was tough. But what was your original question? Sorry.
How did you see the family
Or what
the family
do you
dynamic breaking? How did that affect the kids more?
Or
than
how
anything?
does it?
On top of the fact that they got taken away from their friends, then their family collapsed.
Are we talking specifically about COVID?
Or just I would just,
like the results
in
of that whole
general.
period. Yeah, like in general, the last 3 years have been
Yeah. I mean,
a whole new world.
I think it's even more in general, like
Yeah.
what, because I think effects would be similar, because a lot of times when parents get divorced, kids end up taken away from all their friends anyway, because they have to move in with one parent in particular, and
Right.
the parents will sell their house and move towns. So I think it's, in general, how do you see that affects these kids, and can it really play into some of these, mental disorders and situations they have?
Yeah, I mean, kids are undoubtedly affected when their parents get divorced. It's somewhat of a no-brainer. It completely breaks apart their foundation and what they know to be relatively safe and secure and predictable. But I think, when by the time people get to me or my colleagues that do the work that we do, these parents have been overtly fighting with each other for a very long time. And the kids are very well aware that mom and dad don't like each other. Mom and dad don't agree on anything. I think they learn, they certainly learn very quickly how to navigate one parent against the other, probably more quickly than kids of married parents do. And yeah, I mean, it's an absolutely devastating and anxious time for these kids. And that's typically the first conversation I have with parents is, what do you think this is doing to your kids? And
I'm glad you called them out on that.
Yeah. Oh, undoubtedly. I mean, so in my role, I am essentially in the room with the parents as acting as an agent of the children's best interest, presumably,
an advocate for
because
the
that's what
kids.
gets lost.
Yeah.
And I wasn't kidding when I said that I have had parents who will send to me a conflict over who is going to pay for the kids' school shoes. And they will pay me to decide who.
They just get so caught up in their own petty fight and current hatred toward each other.
In, I want to pay, not you, or as in you need to pay, not me?
As in you need to pay, not me.
Wow. Put shoes on your kid. That's a no-brainer.
Split the payment. If it's that, like,
I've never understood it. I've never understood two grown-ups.
Yeah.
Who can't put their children first, no matter what's happening between them. I can hate you behind closed doors, but those kids need to be taken care of.
That is still their mom. That is still their dad. Like, that's my thing. Unless the other parent has proven to be abusive toward the child, then there is absolutely zero grounds, zero reason why you should be trash talking that parent in front of the child, why you should be prohibiting that parent from trying to prohibit that parent from seeing their child, and trying to negatively affect the relationship between that parent and their child.
Well, oftentimes one or both parents feel as though in their perception is that the other parent is not doing well by the children. And it's their perception. And the conversation I have with those parents is you have to recognize that parents legally only have to be good enough. They just have to be good enough in the eyes of the probate and family court system. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to always make the right decision.
Well, no one's perfect, and everyone's figuring out as they go. So.
Right. So like, you know, that's I think the hardest thing for parents whose perception is I am the better parent. That parent has a trait or a behavior that is not in the best interest of kids. Well, show me a parent in a married family who doesn't have similar traits that are maybe not in the best interest of the kid, but they're good enough.
Right.
And kids do fine.
And that's sad because
too, though.
That sets the bar so low for the care of the children. Yeah. And that should be the highest bar.
Well, yeah, but I think what they're meaning is I think they set that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like they set that bar purposely because they know that, similar to how success is subjective, the idea of what is 100% the best way you could be acting for your child, it can also be subjective.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's something else that they fail to realize is they let their negative emotions toward each other in the moment override everything else. And then they sit there and they fail to recognize, well, we might just think differently on this specific circumstance with the kids. They would choose to handle it this way, but I want to handle it this way. But just because they're not handling it the way I would doesn't mean they're lesser of a parent.
And oftentimes these traits are traits that were in existence when they got married or when they met or when they were dating. And now because of the divorce or the conflict or the scorn or the hard feelings or the sadness or anger or whatever it is, they become the target of, okay, I'm gonna grab onto this trait and I'm gonna make it about them not being a good enough parent or a good parent. You know, like for example, like, you know, my husband has a glass of wine every night with dinner. And I don't think that's a good example for the kids. And my first question is, well, did your husband have a glass of wine with dinner when you first met or before you had kids? And the answer is often yes. It's like, so why would you expect that to be any different now?
Right.
And if you didn't think that was a problem then is it really a problem now? And it's just, it gets lost in the emotion and the anger and the hurt that undoubtedly comes with divorce. So, yeah. They're tough cases.
It's got to be, like you and I have talked about this a bunch of times. I don't know how I could never do what you do because I'm too blunt.
I could not either. I would just get too frustrated with people.
I'm too much of a straight shooter to be pleasant with people that I know are idiots. and I say that in I don't know. That's exactly what you get. Well, this is what's happening. Well, because you're an idiot. Look what you're doing. I have said this to other people. Say that again so you could hear the words coming out of your mouth.
But see, here's the problem.
And that's why I can never do what you do. And I applaud you for being able
100%.
to do the things you do.
But see, here's the problem too, though. When you say you're an idiot, that's your perception. You think they're being an idiot based on the circumstances and how you would choose to handle things.
No, not always.
Sometimes. And they could argue that back to you.
See, she could be our therapist.
Yeah.
We fight like a married couple.
You should get me a chair over there for future episodes, and then I can weigh in when it needs to happen.
No, I think, but we've talked, obviously it's a heavy topic, and there's unfortunately a lot of negatives in situations like this, but what is one positive thing about your job or one thing that you really see in a positive way that you think is
We've got about 5 minutes left.
Great.
Just so.
Right. So I want to end on a more positive note.
On a good note.
You've been very serious face tonight.
Yeah.
Look, you smiled.
I've smiled a lot tonight.
She has. Not at you. At me.
Yeah, that's it. You've only seen the back of my head. There's a lot of positives. I think that the top at the top of the list is over the last 20 years, I've seen I've had the privilege of seeing a lot of people get better. And awesome. I often, because there's a lot of hurt and sadness, and my husband, hears the sadness, obviously confidentiality kept, but, he sees the sadness. And every now and then when I get to come downstairs and say, I have somebody who's getting better or somebody is better, he's like, that's why you keep doing what you're doing. And he's absolutely right. Those are the things that keep me going in this field this long, and lots of clinicians burn out far sooner than 20 years because it's a lot. But I think watching people get better, watching people get sober and clean is probably, and maintain it, get into the maintenance phase of the stages of change, which we talked about the other night in the seminar, is probably one of my favorites. Or watching people who are medication skeptics, but they really need medication in order to live a good life, wrap their head around, if I just take this and I can do certain things that I can't do now. Those are some of my favorite moments.
And what advice would you give to anyone that is potentially in the thick of these types of situations right now, in hopes to, maybe be able to get out of it, or, they want to get out of it, but they don't know how, whether that be like the substance abuse or struggling with mental health and not knowing how to take the steps to actually start to understand it and manage it?
Find a really good therapist or a really good support group.
Can confirm that's important.
I tell all of my clients at some point or another, usually in the beginning, that our goal is to never see each other again. And that is because I've done my job and you've done your job and we've collaborated and you are better. Find a therapist who is willing to say that to you. You want a therapist who is going to get down and dirty, do the behavioral work with you, be honest and be direct, and really help you move forward, and do it in a timely way if that's possible. But
I think that's something that a lot of people, and I've said this personally to some people in my life as well, who have gone through moments of struggle with these types of things, where it's a sad truth, but it's a truth that needs to be that you need to be aware of. Like, this stuff does take a lot of work internally.
Yes.
A lot of work internally, but it's worth doing the work. I don't even want to know where I would be today if I didn't put in the work that I've put in with my anxiety over the last 5 years.
Yeah. It's not your anxiety. It's anxiety.
Yeah, that's... Ooh. Oh, see? We become so... Why do we do that? I always try and say... So I say...
You're holding on to it as if like it's mine.
So what I try and... Something that I've actually talked about with my therapist that she really liked my analogy of, that I just kind of... It came to me one day where I'm like, I need to accept that I have this and it's something I need to learn how to manage, how to deal with, how it affects me, how I can manage it. But I need to treat it and think of it as, it's not a part of me per se that can control me. It's like that really annoying frenemy that it just stays beside you all day long. Like, hey,
Yep.
hey, and I can choose to engage with her, or I can choose to ignore the F out of her.
That's right.
And it's a really tough thing to do mentally, and there's gonna be days where it gets to you more than others. But if you can, John's like, yes, it does. But if you can learn how to effectively manage it, and thank you for helping people learn how to do that, because it's such an important thing, and I think there's unfortunately not enough focus on mental health in this country.
Yeah,
definitely not.
And there should be more.
We all struggle with anxiety at one time or another. It's sort of a natural part of life. Yeah. In fact, a lot of the times it keeps us safe and protects us from certain things.
Right.
So anxiety isn't always bad.
No, it's your fight or flight system going like, hey, something might be off here.
Well, we want to thank you for coming here today
100%.
and sitting with us, and hopefully bringing some insight to everybody watching and listening. Once again, we are on all of your favorite podcast sites, so you can go to Spotify or Audible or any of the sites that you get your podcasts on. except Apple's still giving us a fight. We'll get on there, though, promise. And then catch us on TV, on Plymouth Rock TV, which is our host station, and Apple TV and Amazon TV and Distro TV and Local Now and
Did you say
Roku.
Yep.
And that's 7 o'clock Sunday nights. We hit TV. Tuesday mornings at 10. We hit your podcast sites. And we are on demand on Plymouth Rock TV's app, starting right after the show on Sundays. Thanks again for watching this week and listening this week. Thank you, Melissa Pinnetti, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Tag.
I'm Bree.
We did that backwards.
I'm Bree.
I'm Tag. And this is Totally Random Thoughts. See you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.